Hi guys, welcome back. So in this lesson we're going to be working on a chord progression and we'll go into a tiny basic bit of music theory. If you know how to make chords, draw in MIDI notes and you're familiar with music theory, then you probably need to skip on to the next one. But everyone else, stick with me. So we're going to go over to browser and what we're going to do, we're going to get this sound here, pluck 05, and we're going to make this a playable instrument or playable sounds, because at the moment it's obviously only in one pitch. What we're going to do, we're going to map this to a sampler track, which means we can then play this sound across our MIDI keyboard, musical keyboard. We'll also be able to create chords with this as well. We're going to drag it over, but we're not going to let go just yet. We're not going to put it in as audio. We're going to come over to the left side where all the tracks are, the grey bit, and choose Quick Sampler Optimized. Now what this does is it loads up the sampler, it's loaded our sample in it, which is this waveform here, and the root key is C3. So if I was to press C3 on my MIDI keyboard, then this sample will play. Now if anyone doesn't have a MIDI keyboard, then all you need to do is press Command and Apple K, and you'll get a virtual keyboard up on the screen. So I'm pressing A with my mouse, or A on the computer keyboard, which is basically the C musical note. If your octave is too low, so for example if it loads up and it says C2, then just press X or this button here and it will increase the octave by 1. We can play this at different pitches, and you can now play this on your MIDI keyboard if you've got one connected. You can click this button here if you just want the piano version. There's lots and lots of other controls on this sampler. We may get into a couple of them a bit later on, but for now I want to keep this really simple. So root key is C3, anything else the pitch is going to be different. So this one here. You can adjust the length of the sample here, so make it more or shorter. You can apply a fade here, fade out. We'll just have a tiny one there, and you can adjust the start point. So now we're not getting the attack of the sound, we're just playing halfway through. Or you can have a fade in. Okay, like I say, there's a lot more to it than that, but for now we'll just use this sampler as a way of triggering our sound. So next thing I need to do, just going to close this down to get a bit more space. We want to draw in an empty MIDI segment so we can now trigger our sample. We need to tell the sampler when to play this sound rather than us having to play the keyboard all the time. So I'm going to make sure my second tool is on pencil, and I'm going to hold down Command, Apple, and just click and draw in an empty bar. An empty MIDI segment, which is a bar long. I'm going to double click it and we can make this lower window bigger, or we can press Command 4 and we get a separate window altogether. So feel free to do that if you wish. What we need to do is write in some notes here so we can trigger some chords. So if you have no clue about music theory and you don't know what chords to start with, then it's probably best to just go to Google and just search for chords in B minor or A minor or A major, whatever it is, and then you can just choose the chords from that particular scale and sticking to the ones on the left here, which just makes it a little bit easier. And also go to the scale. So let's say you choose B minor. Go to notes in B minor as well, and you can see this little diagram here. That tells you what notes you can use. So this will help you create chords, and it will also help you create melodies because it shows you what notes will fit in that particular scale. So I just wanted to show that. So I'm going to create a B minor chord, and the way I'm going to do that is just to hold down my Command Apple key, turn it into a pencil tool, and I'm going to draw a B. Hover over the note, it tells you what note it is, B2. So the next note will be 3 semitones up, so 1, 2, 3. And that is a D, and the next note will be 4 semitones up. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That should be F sharp. So we've now got this. And if I highlight them all, it tells you there what chord it is. That's a B minor chord. If you want to make this a major chord, you count 4, then 3, as opposed to 3, then 4. So just bring the middle one up, and you've got a B major. Slightly happier. And minor. So we'll just turn this down a little bit. So the next chord I want to make is an A major. And I'm just going to make this a little bit longer. In fact, let's draw this out or extend this MIDI segment out all the way across. And just do some zooming to give us a bit more room. So the next one will be on bar 6. So A major, so we need to go for A obviously. So we can go to the upper A or the lower A. So B A, it's going to be this one here. So major will count up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a C sharp, and then 1, 2, 3. That should be an E, yep. And you get the idea. Highlight them all and it tells you what chord it is. So this is what we've got so far. Just move that over. And don't worry, we'll get a bit more interesting than this. This is obviously just the basics. And the next chord I'm going to make is an E major. So I'm just going to highlight them all. This time I'm going to copy. So hold down Alt, Option. Go from A2 down to, first of all go to bar 7. Then we'll go down to E2. Okay, so let's make these a bit more funky. Highlight them all, or Command A, and let's extend these out so they're one beat. Make sure this is on beat. You've got a snap grid in the edit window as well. So that's one beat there, that's 2 beats, that's 3 beats, that's 4 beats. Let's go to 1 beat. So if we want to see what notes we're actually working with here and have them displayed, let's go to View, Note Labels. So now we've got the notes and the velocity number as well. Velocity number just means how hard you've hit the key and therefore the loudness of it. So if you wanted to make this note a little bit lower in volume, you would just highlight it and then adjust the velocity down here. And it becomes a different colour. So that middle note was less volume. So just going to put that back to where it was. And if your notes are not showing, it just means you haven't zoomed in enough. Because if you zoom out vertically, the notes disappear, or the note names disappear. So let's make these chords a little bit funkier. A good way to sort of mix these up a little bit is just to change the voicing. Now changing the voicing just means taking a note and putting it down an octave or putting it up an octave, and you can do that with any of these notes. And it's still playing the same chord, it's just playing them in a different area on the keyboard. So let's highlight the top 2 notes. If you want to highlight any more, just hold down Shift. You can highlight individual notes. And we're going to put these 2 notes down 1 octave. We could drag them down, but that's a little bit cumbersome. So we're going to hold Alt and Shift and press down arrow. There we go. So now we have this. So I'm just going to try something here. This all sounds a bit sort of low in octave. So what I'll do, we'll come to the sampler track and we'll load up the sampler, which is on the left hand side, the inspector window. Good opportunity for me to show you the inspector window. You can turn it on or off with the I button. Whatever track you've got highlighted here, it will show you the mixer console strip. And basically you've got all your effects and you've got the volume fader and a whole load more stuff than that. Stuff we'll come on to later. But if we want to load up the sampler, Then we just click this middle button here. And I'm just going to try popping this sample up an octave. So we want to go to pitch, go to coarse, and we'll try putting this up to +12, which is an octave, and we'll press play. Yeah, that sounds better. So back to the edit window. So basically we're still playing a B minor, it's just that no longer is the root note at the bottom, the B2. We've actually got the F sharp at the bottom, but it's still B minor. And it can just change the feel sometimes of a track. So a quick before and after. Again, there's tons more things you can do to play around with chords, but just for now we'll keep it simple. Another thing we can do is just bring these middle ones across or forward half a beat. Moving a note half a beat, just really sort of change the rhythm. What we're going to have to do is just change this to division, so we can go half a beat. Now that sounds completely different to me, it just sounds a lot nicer having that coming slightly earlier. So just going to copy this over, highlight them all, Option Alt copy over to 9. So it's a 3 chord sequence obviously. And you can see we're filling out the entire block at the moment, or almost. So let's change it up in the second half a little bit. If you've got a trackpad, by the way, you can zoom in and zoom out using that, or the trackpad on your computer. I think we'll just put a little fill-in note here. Okay, so let's change these two. They're a bit sort of samey. Let's change these two chords here. Going to chuck this one up an octave. So highlight it, Alt and Shift, up arrow. So now our progression is going to sort of go up in pitch. Same note, but an octave higher. And let's do something funky with this last chord. Put this one up as well, Shift, Alt, up. And then we have an E on the end. Let's just have a listen to this whole thing. So that is the basics of it. We've still got some more embellishments to make, but that is the start of our chord progression. So all we're going to do now is a little bit of housekeeping, show you how to change colours, that kind of thing, show you how to rename things. So our mixer later on is quite easy to use. Otherwise we've got all these weird names everywhere. So kick, we'll just rename to kick. We'll rename this pluck 01 because there's another pluck coming later on. But you'll notice that we've only named the track here and not the actual MIDI itself. So it's quite handy to have this done as well. So highlight everything, right click, go to name and color, rename regions by tracks. There we go, so that makes it a lot easier. And if you want to change the colors of the tracks or the individual segments, go Alt C, brings up the color palette. And with that track highlighted, we can make this like a pinky red. And for drums, we'll keep them yellow. There we go. So it just makes things a little bit neater. Don't forget to save your project. And in the next lesson, we'll start building on some more drums. Hope that was useful for you guys. All the very best. See you soon. Bye bye.